As Donald Trump's polling hits new lows, we're seeing massive international protests against Donald Trump. We're seeing him mocked in parades, like coming off of whatever the heck that was of Rubio in Munich. You have in Dusseldorf, Germany, a carnival that was taking place today where one of the main attractions was mocking Donald Trump. There were Donald Trump hitting Jesus in the face and giving Jesus a black eye float, along with Vladimir Putin floats. There was Donald Trump being a Putin bootlicker float. Of course, right outside of Munich, there was the statue of Donald Trump called the Orange Plague that everybody saw as they were walking. And rather than me describing it, let me just play for you what went down. And this is what it looks like in Dusseldorf as Donald Trump. It's a float of Donald Trump violating the Statue of Liberty while he has a stormy tattoo on his leg. Here, play this clip. More from Dusseldorf right here. Here, play this clip. Finally, I'll show you a little bit more right here. Let's play it. So the United States was featured alongside the Ayatollah, Putin, Afghanistan. They sure know how to do a carnival there in Dusseldorf and in Germany. More on Donald Trump's crashing poll numbers. The new data out this morning suggests that if there were to be a redo of the 2024 election, not only would former Vice President Kamala Harris, well, only would she win, but she'd win pretty big numbers. Here, play this clip.
Regrets of some folks had a few. What are we talking about here? Well, let's just take a look here. Okay, choice for 2024 presidential election. The actual was Donald Trump winning by about 1.5 points. It rounds to a point. But take a look here. In a polled redo between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in April of 2025, it was within the margin of error, right? Kamala Harris by a point. But look at where we are now, according to an NBC News SurveyMonkey poll. Kamala Harris wins in a redo, asking folks, essentially, if you could redo the 2024 election, how would you vote? She wins it by, get this, 8 points, a massive shift from what we saw back in November of 2024 when Donald Trump won by 1 point. And I will note that this sample was weighted to the 2024 result in which Donald Trump won by 1 point, but yet Kamala Harris in this weighted sample, get this, she wins by 8 amongst a sample that voted for Trump by 1.
So the good news is Kamala Harris, for her, wins the 2024 election. The bad news is it's actually 2026, so it doesn't count for her. What about, though, the 2026 midterms when we're talking about Trump voters and then also Harris voters?
Okay, so you see this, and as John was laughing about, the fact is the 2024 election is good, gone, goodbye. But it has a massive impact, this voter sentiment, on what may happen later this year. Why do I say that? Because let's take a look at the vote for Congress, and this is very important, all right? 2024 Harris voters, they vote for the Democrats on average by, get this, 89 points. The Trump voters mostly stick by the Republicans, but by a significantly smaller margin, by 83 points. This means that the Democratic base that voted for Kamala Harris is sticking with those congressional Democratic candidates to a much greater degree than those Trump voters are sticking with the Republican candidates for Congress. And that is why what you're seeing on that generic congressional ballot is Democrats leaping ahead by this point by about 5 points, because at least at this point, the Trump voters are not sticking by the Republicans as much as the Harris voters are sticking by the Democrats.
Yeah, and these numbers may not look that different, but this 5 points, which is roughly what that is, that really could be hugely important come November. This is people who did vote in 2024. What about those perhaps who did not?
Okay, so part of the equation, right, is that the Harris voters are really sticking with those Democratic candidates to a more so than the Trump voters are sticking with the Republican candidates. But it's more than that. It's also people coming off of the sideline. Okay, voters' choice for election for the 2026 congressional elections. If they didn't vote in 2024, look at this. Democrats are winning that vote by a significant margin, by 16 percentage points. So you add onto that
And you add on to that the independent voters who are overwhelmingly swinging away from Donald Trump. And the question is why? And I think we know the answer. But I think one of the great articles that came out recently was from Semaphore by Ben Smith, host of the Mixed Signals podcast and co-founder and editor-in-chief of Semaphore, How Trump's Politics Return to Earth. They identify some of the main factors here in kind of Donald Trump's fall right now. Real videos, the ICE, Border Patrol, Gestapo videos that people are capturing of Trump terrorizing and this Border Patrol terrorizing the people in this country. The Epstein disaster, obviously, the cover-up of the Epstein files, the continued cover-up, and Donald Trump claiming he's vindicated while there are lots of people in his regime who are mentioned, and certainly doesn't seem like vindication would be putting it lightly, and the American people are horrified at what they're seeing, and rightfully so. And Trump's attempt at capturing the media really hasn't gone as planned. I mean, yeah, we see what's going on CBS. Obviously, you have Fox and other media bending the knee, but I think you have independent news also rising, and people are getting their information from places like the Midas Touch Network, like Semaphore, and other places. So let's bring in Ben Smith. Ben, it's great to see you right there. I showed you what was going on in Dusseldorf, but I didn't need to show you in Dusseldorf what's going on right here in Peoria. What's happening in the United States is something astonishing. And I know you as a reporter, political observer for so many years, I mean, this is, there's definitely something going on right now, which is why you wrote the article, that is not hyperbolic, I don't think, to talk about, Trump really, descending right now, as Enton says, to new lows. What do you make about it?
Yeah, I don't think Trump is going to win the Dusseldorf mayoral election this November. But more broadly, the thing about Trump is he is this bizarre political phenomenon who seems to play by none of the sort of rules that we grew up thinking about how politics works. And when he arrived on the scene, everybody said he was going to lose, and he won. And I think, and yet at the same time, there are these other periods where he's sort of behaving exactly like any other political figure, and actually having the first year of a presidency feel like this massive sea change in the direction of the country, in which the president has absolutely reshaped everything. And then you get to the second year and that all collapses, is like the most familiar pattern in American government. Trump's numbers are somewhat worse. I think in the polling Nate Silver has, a little worse than Biden's were at this point of time, a little worse than his own numbers were 8 years ago, which is, pretty bad, but within the norms of the second year of a president bad. I think one of the really interesting things is how much of what we thought was happening last year kind of turns out to be wrong. I mean, I think there was this idea that we were post-truth, specifically, that kind of the combination of these hyper-partisan social media environment and AI was going to mean everybody would live in this kind of closed bubble and nothing would crack through. That, if you didn't like the reality you saw, somebody would make you a video showing a different one. I just don't think that's really happened. Like, I was worried about that, but I think particularly around the ICE stuff, what broke through was the reality of these videos, and it broke through, including to the White House, which is now pulled out of Minneapolis. But I don't think anybody thought, like the big story of 2026 is going to be like real videos on social media, which just change everybody's minds about reality. Like, I think that was in a weird way, kind of an unexpected plot twist. And that to me is actually in some ways the thing that everybody got most wrong. The idea that